I gotta go. Hey, you and I both look awesome. Listen, I gotta run, okay? Call me.
Never stop being gorgeous.
Goodbye, friend.
He said black like obsidian, land of the Indians. 7 out the corners is mother's dominion. Bird of the thunder, we don't go under. We sing aloud, we don't care for opinion. Oh, sky horses, ancestor forces. I hear the language, I hear the language deep. Wake from your sleep, swallow up the message and tell me what you see. I see constellations fly.
Wow, you really hit the ground hard.
All the worlds, they are turning, 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 turning. But the music is my fortress, 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 fortress. See, I heard it in a chorus, chorus, chorus. Last night I saw a blazing stallion running through the fields of that is the name on fire, singing our spiritual.
I realized I had the choice every single day to save over 1,100 gallons of water, 45 pounds of grain, 30 square feet of forested land, the equivalent of 20 pounds of CO2, and one animal's life every single day.
Veganism is the most powerful tool that we have for saving our planet, for ending world hunger, for improving our health when we eat health consciously, and for regaining our compassion, for becoming the people that we believe ourselves to be, good people.
We all say we love animals and we all are against animal cruelty, but we pay people to mutilate, torture, and slaughter animals.
They can sense the fear, they can smell the blood, and they fight. They fight to the end. In my years of being vegan and speaking with many, many non-vegans, I have yet to hear one reason that even comes close to justifying putting a sentient being through what we just watched. Not one.
And it's not for any necessity. It's not because we need to for our health. It's just because we like the way they taste.
And these creatures have never harmed you, violated you, or taken advantage of you in any way, shape, or form. The least you can do is return the favor.
I'm a vegan, which means I don't participate in any animal exploitation or cruelty. I don't consume any animal products. And I wanted to show people through my journey and my writing on the blog just how easy that is to do.
Yeah, bro.
How healthy it is.
These are the top 15 causes of death, the top 15 reasons Americans die. And a plant-based diet can help prevent nearly all of them, can help treat more than half of them, and in some cases even reverse the progression of disease, including our top 3 killers.
And our Cornell and Harvard say that the optimal amount of meat in a healthy human diet is precisely 0.
They're killing you, they're killing the animals, and they're killing this planet.
You know, we don't need to eat animals. We benefit in every conceivable way from not eating them.
This is a chance for a personal revolution to leave your mark on this planet by causing the least amount of harm possible.
As I travel around the world, I see poor countries who sell their grain to the West while their own children starve in their arms, and the West feeds it to livestock.
And good people don't take food from the mouths of starving children. Good people don't destroy the planet, leaving our children futureless. Good people don't kill newborn babies. Good people don't rape, torture, or murder. Yet good people everywhere are doing all of these things with every single bite. But we have the power to stop all of this, and that is the beauty of veganism. It happens on an individual basis.
And here's something you could stand up 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day and say, I'm opposed to discrimination. I'm opposed to injustice. And that's why I'm eating vegan meals. This is something you can actually do.
You are the change. You decide what goes in your body. You decide whether you want to continue to have others kill for you. You decide whether you want to continue consuming death, terror, and heartbreak. You decide. And my hope is that you'll decide to go vegan.
New Colgate Optic White Renewal removes 10 years of yellow stains. That's like all the way back to 2010.
Do the doggy!
Remove 10 years of yellow stains with new Colgate Optic White Renewal.
To make our thing, since only a few decades ago, meat was a luxury product. Today, you can get a cheeseburger for $1. Paradoxically, meat is pretty much the most inefficient way of feeding humans. If we look at it on a global scale, our meaty diet is literally eating up the planet. Why is that? And what can we do about it without giving up steak? Humans keep a lot of animals for food. Currently, about 23 billion chickens, 1.5 billion cattle, and roughly 1 billion pigs and sheep. That's a lot of mouths to feed, so we've transformed Earth into a giant feeding ground. 83% of its farmland is used for livestock, for example, as pasture, and to farm fodder crops like corn and soy. That's 26% of Earth's total land area. If we include the water we need for these plants, meat and dairy production accounts for 27% of global fresh water consumption. Unfortunately, meat production is like a black hole for resources. Since animals are living things, most of their food is used to keep them alive while they grow their tasty parts. Only a fraction of the nutrients from fodder crops end up in the meat we buy in the end. Cows, for example, convert only about 4% of the proteins and 3% of the calories of the plants we feed to them into beef. More than 97% of the calories are lost to us. To create 1 kilogram of steak, a cow needs to eat up to 25 kilos of grain and uses up to 15,000 liters of water. Animal products are guzzling up tons of food, but they only make up 18% of the calories humans eat. According to projections, we could nourish an additional 3.5 billion people if we just ate the stuff we feed to animals. To make our favorite food group 5 billion people if we just ate the stuff we feed to animals. To make our favorite food group even more unsustainable, about 15% of all greenhouse gas emissions caused by humans are created by the meat industry, as much as by all ships, planes, trucks and cars combined, and looked down on in disgust. While all these things are tons of it per year, buying organic is still preferable, but does not grant you moral absolution. The truth is, if suffering were a resource, we would create billions of tons of it per year. The way we treat animals will probably be one of the things future generations will look down on in disgust. Preferable, but does not grant you moral absolution. The truth is, if suffering were a resource, we would create billions of tons of it per year. The way we treat animals will probably be one of the things future generations will look down on in disgust. While all these things do exist, of course, but meat is still a business, and all meat is still a business than convinced. While all these things are all money, the way we treat animals will probably...
A Leaf Bee, a fun and enjoyable journey to master Arabic for speakers.
The past is not something to know. They us. Just stop for a second, forget the past and have a look. I think we'd all see the same thing. Let's just have a look at what we have collectively created, including the good people who haven't done enough. They haven't said no. They haven't led the way. They haven't showed people what's going on and this has to stop. Not enough, obviously. That's the facts. For them to admit that, for everyone just to be honest about the reality of what we've created. And I still think the animal issue is enough. To think we have such a thing called a slaughterhouse. Where people are employed to grab an animal, use electric prods to force it to go where they want, to jam bolts in their heads, to slice their throats up, hang them from chains and watch them die as blood drips out of their throat and their legs kick desperately. To think that even exists in the numbers that it does. What I'm talking about is a few bad people around that do that. We're talking about this is the norm. If we can't stop and look at that and say, holy crap, what have we done? If we can't face that, we will not be able to face anything. And that can only happen if we forget the past, because in the past is where all of our justifications were created. That's why it's like that. So the past creates a deluded sense of glasses to look through, and then we can tell ourselves anything. I guarantee you, if you could just plonk everyone completely in this moment, but not in a moment for self-indulgent, like this living in the now, where we're like, you know, oh, I just can be happy and free, and, you know, they don't run around being compassionate. I'm talking about living in the now via looking at the truth and how ugly it has become. That's a different kind of being in the now. That's a wake-up being in the now. I'm convinced that would do it if we just look. Forget theories, forget philosophies, forget possibilities, forget psychology, forget everything. Just honestly look at what we have done.
A kinder and more compassionate society for all animals. For delicious vegan recipes, nutritional information, and tips on making the transit, and tips for all animals and violence system, we can put our ethics on the table today to explain pain and suffering as the dogs and cats so many of us know and love. Farmed animals are every bit as intelligent, curious, and capable of feeling pain and suffering as the dogs and cats so many of us know and love. If you are at all moved by this film, please do your part. Make a commitment today to explore a vegan diet. It could be one of the best decisions of your life. By withdrawing our support of this cruel and violent system, we can put our ethics on the table and make a statement for a kinder and more compassionate society for all animals. For delicious vegan recipes, nutritional information, and tips on making the transition to a plant-based diet, please visit chooseveg.com.
Humans love the most inefficient way of feeding humans. If we look at it on a global scale, our meaty diet is literally eating up the planet. Why is that? And what can we do about it without giving up steak? Humans keep a lot of animals for food. Currently, about 23 billion chickens, 1.5 billion cattle, and roughly 1 billion pigs and sheep. That's a lot of mouths to feed, so we've transformed Earth into a giant feeding ground. 83% of its farmland is used for livestock, for example as pasture, and to farm fodder crops like corn and soy. That's 26% of Earth's total land area. If we include the water we need for these plants, meat and dairy production accounts for 27% of global freshwater consumption. Unfortunately, meat production is like a black hole for resources. Since animals are living things, most of their food is used to keep them alive while they grow their tasty parts. Only a fraction of the nutrients from fodder crops end up in the meat we buy in the end. Cows, for example, convert only about 4% of the proteins and 3% of the calories of the plants we feed to them into beef. More than 97% of the calories are lost to us. To create 1 kilogram of steak, a cow needs to eat up to 25 kilos of grain and uses up to 15,000 liters of water. Animal products are guzzling up tons of food, but they only make up 18% of the calories humans eat. According to projections, we could nourish an additional 3.5 billion people if we just ate the stuff we feed to animals.
That what I am involves what you are. I don't know who I am unless I know who you are. And you don't know who you are unless you know who I am. There was a wise rabbi once said, if I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I and you are not you. In other words, we are not separate. We define each other. We're all backs and fronts to each other. You know, you can't, for example, have two sticks. You lean two sticks against each other and they stand up because they support each other. Take one away and the other falls. They interdepend. And so in exactly that way, we and our environment, and all of us and each other are interdependent systems. We know who we are in terms of other people. We all lock together. And this is, again and again, the serious scientific description of how things happen. And any good scientist knows, therefore, that what you call the external world is as much you as your own body. Your skin doesn't separate you from the world. It's a bridge through which the external world flows into you, and you flow into it. Just, for example, as a whirlpool in water, you could say because you have a skin, you have a definite shape, you have a definite form. Right? Here is a flow of water, and it does a whirlpool. And then it goes on. The whirlpool is a definite form, but no water stays put in it. The whirlpool is something the stream is doing. And exactly the same way, the whole universe is doing each one of us. And I see you today, and I recognize you tomorrow, just as I would recognize a whirlpool in a stream. I'd say, oh yes, I've seen that whirlpool before. It's just near so-and-so's house on the edge of the river, and it's always there.
Can you stop sugar cravings? According to the Mid-America Heart Institute, sugar is more addictive than...
The Earth is not a big rock infested with living organisms, any more than your skeleton is bones infested with cells. The Earth is geologically, yes, but this geological entity grows people. And our existence on the Earth is a symptom of the solar system and its balances, as much as the solar system in turn is a symptom of our galaxy, and our galaxy in its turn is a symptom of the whole company of galaxies. So in describing my talking at the moment, I can't describe this just as a thing in itself, because I'm talking to you. And so what I'm doing at the moment is not completely described unless your being here is described also. So if that is necessary, if in other words, in order to describe my behavior, I have to describe your behavior and the behavior of the environment, it means that we've really got one system of behavior. That what I am involves what you are. And the problem is, you see, we haven't been taught to feel that way. The myths underlying our culture and underlying our common sense have not taught us to feel identical with the universe, but only parts of it, only in it, only confronting it, aliens. And we are, I think, quite urgently in need of coming to feel that we are the eternal universe.
What we need is a sense of unity, not an idea of unity, not an ideology of unity, because if there ever was an ideology of unity, it was communism, and the pieces are still falling from the explosion of that system of thought. We need a feeling of unity, so it doesn't come out of intellectual exhortation. It comes out of a personal act of courage made by the individual, an act of courage which involves surrender. Surrender is the opposite side of the coin of ego. The central issue of our times is our inability to surrender to what we know is right. We have the ability to feed the hungry. We have the ability to educate our children, to clean up our environment, to eliminate sexism, to eliminate racism. The question is, can we change our minds fast enough?
The hour is late. The clock is ticking. We will be judged very harshly if we fumble the ball. We are the inheritors of millions and millions of years of successfully lived lives and successful adaptations to changing conditions in the natural world. Now the challenge passes to us, the living, that the yet to be born may have a place to put their feet and a sky to walk under. Let's not whore ourselves to nitwit ideologies. Let's not give our control program of a living world and a re-empowerment of the imagination.
Most people live their lives turning their backs on things too difficult to face. Ignoring what hurts you eventually becomes a habit, the natural thing to do. If we only allow ourselves to see what we want to see, we just end up clouding our visions more and more until eventually we become so blind to the horrible truths around us that we just stop caring. This is the story that no one wants to hear. No one wants to think about it, because it's easier to sleep at night without having to confront reality. And who wants to do that when it makes us realize how selfish our species has become? I went to a slaughterhouse to see the pigs before they were driven in to be killed. More than 56 billion farmed animals are killed every year in the meat, dairy, and egg industries, and these are all individuals. Innocent beings raised as commodities, exploited all their lives so their bodies and secretions can become products. I spent a lot of time watching and editing through graphic footage of animals being abused and killed. I thought I'd become numb to their suffering, but looking into their eyes broke me. To connect with a being in their final moments is one of the hardest things to deal with. You can see the pain and desperation, and feel the fear of someone who doesn't want to die, who never felt happiness and was never shown love, torn away from their families and never given a chance to be free. I'm haunted by the terrified pigs who I couldn't save and had to watch drive away, staring at me. Hungry, thirsty, tired creatures who became corpses later that day. I heard the screams of death in the distance and knew that that would soon be them. Knowing there was nothing I could do to save them left me so hopeless. And the worst thing about it is that we know this is happening every single day but choose to ignore it. And honestly believe that if most people had to look into the eyes of the victims on their way to be killed, they wouldn't be able to do it. No animal wants to die. We all know that. But we pay people to mutilate, torture, and slaughter them, just because we like the way they taste. We've been so distracted by our iPhones and TVs that we've lost our humanity. We've forgotten what it really means to have love and respect. And I just hope the world will wake up and realize we don't need to do this to them to live a happy, healthy life. I couldn't save those pigs, and they're probably already in a supermarket right now. So I'm telling their story because I know that some people need to hear it. Some people need to see how their choices affect others. And once you know, you have to change.